let me pause for a second and explain why the free market doesn't work and can never work. But first I'll give you an example where it does work. I know that sounds like an oxymoron. Just go with it. Greasy spoon diners and a continental breakfast. Okay, so a continental breakfast, bunch of hash browns, couple slices of bacon, a couple eggs, a couple slices of tomato, couple slices of buttered bread, usually a coffee or something along with that. All of those items you can buy yourself, you can cook, and you can serve yourself for a relatively small price. And these diners know this. They know that they can't value add, upsell these breakfasts very much. So you end up getting a breakfast that's maybe twice the price of the ingredients, maybe a little bit more. All of those ingredients are super, super cheap. So they have to compete with the home chef. Even when you're looking at buying a steak or buying a chopped salad or any of those kinds of things, the restaurant knows they're competing with the home chef because outside very few niche cases, you can make anything. Even an eclair. You can make an eclair, which is one of the things that French chefs says that are so hard to make. You can make sushi, which the Japanese believe that you need to be an apprentice for 40 years to be able to make perfect sushi. But you can make it at home. And depending on the level of quote-unquote fine dining and the complexity of the dish, they can charge more for it. But you never really see the absurd multiplications that you see in other industries for how much they sell you a product. Okay, we're going to stay in that industry. We're going to give you another example where the markup is absurd. Soft drinks. Okay, so you can go to Walmart, you can get a 2-liter bottle of Coke for $2. It's $1 a liter, at least in Canada. It's $1 a liter. In a restaurant or a McDonald's or anything else, they use these things called soda bibs. Okay, so they're 5-gallon or 100-liter plastic bags in a box that is concentrated syrup. And they're supposed to be served at a 5-to-1 ratio. So 1 squirt of syrup to 5 squirts of water, of carbonated water. Restaurants never do that. They always turn those calibrations down. So you get more water, you get 5 parts to 1 part or 7 parts to 1 part water. And they also up the carbon dioxide level, which makes the drink taste quote-unquote softer. Makes it taste softer. That's why when you go to McDonald's, the soft drink tastes very different from out of the bottle. Out of the bottle, you've got a bite to it. If you're drinking it out of the soda fountain, you get kind of a just a silkier sort of taste to it. And that's because how they're injecting carbon dioxide into the water and the ratios they have. Now, they sell you those drinks at a fairly large premium. It's about, well, okay, so if you go to McDonald's during the summer, you can get, like, pretty much a liter for $1 as well, over a liter for $1. But how much do you think they're getting charged for that? So, just as a regular person off the street, you can get, if you shop around, a really cheaply priced bib that you go pick up yourself for $50. Okay, at that price, that means that for a liter, you're paying about 10 cents a liter for the soft drink. The carbon dioxide and the water are non-costs. They're so cheap as to not even merit a price. Like, just think about what you pay for your water at home and how many showers and baths, and you're running your dishwasher and flushing your toilet several times a day and all of that stuff, and you don't pay very much for water. You might think it's a lot, and it might look like a lot compared to like 20 years ago, but in comparison to a glass, it's a non-cost. And carbon dioxide is so cheaply produced. All you're paying for is the person turning a valve to fill up your bottle. Okay, so when I was a kid and I worked for McDonald's, they had the fill tank underneath the trailer, and they just hooked it up and it just into the main tank, and most of the time it was just a flat fee. You didn't pay per liter, you just paid for the usage of it. It didn't matter how empty or how full your system was. It was too cheap to meter. The only thing that you could pay for is the service. So what you're doing is you're paying for 10 to 15 times the cost for the soft drink. That's a 1,000 to 15,000% increase from the cost of the product. Now you compare that to the continental breakfast, which is only like a 200% markup, or even less than that for the continental. Or for a steak, you might be getting a 500% markup, and that's with, you know, a lot of bells and whistles and the chef's signature rub, and you're sitting in a restaurant with tablecloths and really gentle sort of classical poppy music in the background, and mood lighting, and waiters dressed up in, you know, nice clothing and usually smelling nice and are usually attractive, all for that relatively low markup. Another field that you can see it in, and Amazon beat the shit out of this industry, is computer cables. Any of you who are my age, you know, in your 40s or in your 30s, before Amazon really hit the market, you know that if you went to Future Shop or Best Buy or whatever the hell the company's names were that are completely gone now, and you picked up a USB cable, it cost you $19.99, $29.99, something like that. A computer cable back in the day, $19.99, $29.99. The cost of computer cables never really seemed to change. Then suddenly Amazon came on the market, and I was working in the industry before that, so I knew what the prices were and what the markups were before. And suddenly you can get all these cables for $2, including shipping. And that's how much they were back in the day in the 90s when I actually worked in the computer retail industry. They were $2. Little computer screws, you know, little screws that you get in bulk for the computer. They'd sell it to you for $9.99. They were 24 cents. Those kind of markups. And who the hell knows how much the manufacturer is marking them up. So let's see why this is the case, and why it can never be beaten. Okay, so people believe that like the words fair market value, or you know, terms of that nature, it's a level playing field. And you have to have a level playing field between consumers and producers for them, for the profit margin to be fair, and for the prices to be fair. But you sitting at home can't manufacture a screw. You sitting at home, it'd be difficult for you to make soda syrup. It's not impossible. You can do it. And lots of people do it, and they're tasty. But because you can't replace that manufacturing process, they can start inflating the price. Cheese Whiz is another example. Cheese Whiz is something that people can't really make at home very easily, and they charge like $8 to $10 a bottle for. But there's very little actual cheese in there. You can make 100 times that price, or 100 times that amount for the same price in actual physical cheese. So let's take an imaginary example. You own a factory and you're making a widget. What's a widget? It doesn't matter. Widget is, you just replace widget with thing. Okay, widget just means thing. It means something that you manufacture. You manufacture a widget. It costs you $9 to make. That includes all the labor, all the material, the shipping, the executives pay, everything. It costs you $9 per widget to make, and you sell it for $10, and you get 1,000 customers. You make $1,000 in profit. Yay, happy days. But you decide later on that you want to sell it for $100. Well, at the $100 level, you're making $9 and or $91 profit, but you can only get 10 people to buy it. Your profit margin is now $910. You're still making about the same amount, but you have shut 990 customers out of the market by uppricing your widget. And again, it doesn't matter what your widget is. It only matters that you're the only person that can manufacture this widget, and you can shut them out. And the common wisdom, the common modern wisdom, is that this is better because you can minimize costs when you have less customers. You have to buy less material, you have to pay less people to process everything, blah, 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 blah. But it's an inherently unstable situation because now you have 10 customers that dictate your future. If one of those customers decides that they like another type of widget, you've lost $110 in profit. If you have 1,000 customers and 10 decide that they want another type of widget, you only lose $10. So the wild ride, as it were, for having these minimized number of customers is great. The peaks and valleys are huge, and you might think, well, that's stupid. Why would anybody do that? But any industry you can think of is doing it. If I take one off the top of my head, the gaming industry, they are doing that bullshit right now with loot boxes and pay-to-play services. So any game that has loot boxes in it, sure, you have a player base that plays it and ignore the loot boxes, but then you have the so-called whales, a term borrowed from the gambling industry, that massively support the game and pour huge amounts of money into the product. And you may just have one whale. Okay, if you have a mobile game, it really only takes one person who's hooked on your game and spending thousands of dollars a week, to support you. And you might think that's absurd. No one's going to pay $1,000 a week. You can Google it. People are paying tens of thousands of dollars a month on these cheap mobile games that nobody's playing except a handful of people that plow money into this. And then when those whales leave, a lot of the smaller developers, they don't care because they've already made $100,000 or $1 million off of whatever they put out, and they might make another game to try to capture the lightning. If they weren't stupid to spend it all and actually invested it wisely, they're going to have money, in the end. So, in that respect, the open market can never be fair, can never have a fair trade price for anything, because there isn't equality on both sides of the aisle for consumers and producers. There is a huge disparity. If you have nowhere else to go for a widget, for a product, they can do whatever they want with it. They can charge however much they want with it. And they have accountants who specialize in maximizing the amount of profit that they can take out of something with the fewest number of transactions. And that's it. There's nothing else to explain. That's how it works. You are you're not just coming to a gunfight with a knife. You are coming to a gunfight blind and without any arms. You are utterly and completely defenseless, as if you were a child, as if you had no limbs, as if you could not speak and could not see. Whereas the other person, the producers, have everything. Just think of absolutely any example, okay? The lumber industry. If you have a woodlot, you could buy the equipment and you could make yourself your own lumber, and it would be dirt cheap, literally dirt cheap. It would cost you nothing except for the price of the equipment. But not very many people own a woodlot. They don't own the equipment, so they have to go to Home Depot and spend $30 a linear meter or whatever the hell it is, or a 2x4. Okay, you can't make a light bulb, so you have to go and you have to buy that. China is disrupting this because they're putting products on the market, even products that are covered under patents, onto the market for as cheaply as they possibly can. That's why lighting, LED lighting, is super cheap. If it wasn't for the Chinese manufacturers building them in massive bulks, it would be they would be super expensive. They'd be way more expensive than incandescent bulbs, because incandescent bulbs are 100-year-old technology. Okay, there are still factories in the world that are tooled specifically for incandescent light bulbs. Fluorescent light bulbs, that was another example that was had an overinflated price, and that's because at the time there wasn't too many Chinese knockoffs. But you have what the British call fairy lights, or Christmas lights, or fair lights, those little Twinkie bullshit things. Okay, those have dropped so much in price since the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s that you can buy them at the dollar store. You can buy long strings at the dollar store, where you used to have to buy them at a big box store or a hardware store or Walmart for $20 each. Now you can buy it for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, because the Western producers are being priced down by China. And the reason China is doing that is because they see the Western markets gouging. They see the Western markets attempting to maximize profits, and they slip under the radar by producing cheaper products. Cell phones is another example. You can buy Chinese clone cell phones for really cheap. I broke my expensive tablet, and a smartphone and a tablet are basically the same thing, so it's apples to apples comparison. I broke my expensive branded tablet, and I bought a super cheap Chinese tablet for $80, where the expensive one was more like $500. And the $80 one is actually faster than the $500 ones. The $500 one was a couple of years old. Okay? And that is exactly how it's working. So the free market right now, the Western free market, is being dragged down by communist economic planning, and it's the only reason why a lot of goods are inexpensive, like extension cords. Extension cords have come down massively in price in the past 30 or 40 years solely because of Chinese manufacturing. The only reason, okay? There's leather coats and other tannery type objects that have been produced in India for over 100 years that were still being sold in Western markets for an exorbitant amount of money, like thousands of dollars for a leather jacket. Suddenly China gets involved, and now you can buy it for $100 or $200. So, like, I'm not saying that their market is better than the Western market. There are problems with communism, and China really isn't communism, okay? China is its own thing. It's its own creation. Just like the United States isn't democratic. It's its own thing. You would have to call it the U.S. political system. You can't call it democracy. It's the U.S. political system. Same with China. It's not communist. It's the Chinese political system. It's its own special brand of whatever the fuck it is. And it would take me hours and hours and hours to dissectively explain what the difference is. But they both have problems. Laissez-faire capitalism does not work for 95% of the population because it prices all of those people out of the market. The only reason you can afford a bottle of Coke is because they happen to be able to make it for pennies a glass. Chinese market, same thing. Big problems there. They have no accountability. Well, the U.S. system doesn't have accountability either, but that doesn't matter. Okay, we're talking about economics. We're not talking about politics. I do not know as much about politics as I know about economics. I know shitloads of economics. I went to school for it. Okay? But that's why it can't work. And why it can never work is because there is no democracy in it. There is no way for the consumer to force the producer to bring their prices down. You can boycott. Most people won't join a boycott. Back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, a company would care about its image. Now, they don't care so much. They still care, but not as much. They know that if there's going to be a boycott, their sales may fluctuate 5-8%. That's about it. And they only have to weather it a few months before people forget about it. Because all of those drives, if you just shut the fuck up for a couple months, everybody forgets. And the world just resets the way it was. And a bottle of Coke continues to cost $2. You can say, well, fuck Coke, too expensive, I'll go to RC. Coke will still be sold. You and a million other people boycotting it just means the 23 other million people are going to buy it instead. And you cannot control it in that way. And that's why housing prices are so high. Yeah, I know, we started, with a little bit of an argument about housing and how landlords are complete scum, and then we get to restaurateurs, blah, blah, blah. Now I brought it back to landlords. Yay, circular argument. Bringing it back to landlords. You're trying to have a open market for land owning, and you can't, because you have giant companies that buy properties and leave them empty just in case some point in the future a developer is going to buy it and stick condominiums in. Or in the case of Ottawa, the O train needs the property to, you know, run through, so they buy it. And that is happening. Like, I think there's the vacancy, the market vacancy rate in Ottawa is super low. It's like less than 5%. I don't exactly remember what it is. I seem to remember 1.8%, but that's probably not the real number. It's less than 5% though. But the actual vacancy rate of buildings that are not in use and are just standing empty and not on the market is over 13%. And you might think that that's a huge number, but in economics, the magic number is between 5 and 10%. That's the magic number for a fairer value system. If you have a supply-demand imbalance that's below 5%, then the producers can demand more price. But if you have an imbalance of 10%, then the consumers can demand a lower price. That is the margin between 5 and 10%. Is the special margin where you can knock people around. That's always been the margin, but whatever.